Husband abandoned me to attend his sister's lavish wedding while I was 9 months pregnant, so I exposed her lies and ruined her marriage. I'm 35F, and I've been married to my husband Andrew, 39M, for the last 7 years. We have a 5-year-old daughter, and I'm currently 7 months pregnant. The primary reason I'm here is that I need someone to hear me out, and what better way than anonymously? My husband has always been close to his family, which I didn't find objectionable during our dating phase. His family was sweet to me whenever we met, but soon after our marriage, I realized he was really close to his mother and sister. It was almost like they had a small gang. While this did not directly impact our relationship as a married couple, I often found myself rolling my eyes at their antics and then moving on. At social gatherings or parties, they would usually sit together and criticize others. Initially, they tried to involve me in their fun activity, but I'm not the kind of person who enjoys small talk or mocking others. I stayed out of it and they didn't bother me, so I didn't bother them. While my MIL and SIL were not particularly warm or friendly, they also didn't openly antagonize me, so I avoided them as much as possible. I never enjoyed their two-faced behavior, mocking people behind their backs while pretending to be friendly in person. After I conceived my first child, I stopped visiting my in-laws altogether. Firstly, I was looking for a reason to cut ties with them, and secondly, my MIL and SIL were toxic. My husband was kind and gentle, but he would transform into a completely different person when he was with his mother and sister. However, since he remained civil at home and treated me well, I didn't mind him spending 2 to 3 hours with them on weekends. I gave him that space. When my daughter Sarah was 3, my in-laws started poisoning her mind by saying things like, "Mama is a bad woman." However, Sarah fought back, cried, and said, "Mama is good." She came home and told me everything. My husband laughed it off, saying they were just teasing her, but I knew their true intentions. Since then, I have never let Sarah be alone with those two evil women. Things started going south last year when my SIL began dating a wealthy businessman from Scotland. It's understandable that she was over the moon to have found such a man, but I couldn't figure out why my husband was equally excited. To give a little background about my in-laws, my FIL retired years ago and lives on his ancestral farmhouse in the countryside. I've only met him a handful of times, and he's a no-nonsense person, unlike the rest of them. That's probably why he moved out, seeking peace. My MIL and SIL are both jobless and live off the rent of one of FIL's properties and his allowance. My husband also gives his mother a part of his salary as an additional allowance. I've always been financially independent, so I didn't mind Andrew giving money to his mother. Coming back to the main point, ever since my SIL started dating that rich man, her attitude took a turn for the worse. She began considering herself a princess or something. She would flash expensive gifts from her boyfriend at family gatherings or social events. She left no opportunity to show off how rich her boyfriend was. The funny part? My MIL joined her in this behavior, giggling with SIL like a teenager. Their behavior annoyed me, and my irritation was clear on my face. It's not that I'm jealous. Why would I be? The problem was that, when they were surviving on a small budget, they never crossed boundaries with me. But with their newfound wealth, they subtly tried to demean me. Though they didn't say it outright, their body language and certain comments made their intentions obvious. Some relatives even confirmed that they believed I was jealous of them. Not long after, I got pregnant with my second child. Thank God. It gave me an excuse to avoid their place entirely. Andrew kept insisting that I let Sarah spend time with him alone, but Sarah refused. She's only 5, yet she doesn't want to be with them. For those who might blame me for turning my daughter against her grandparents, let me tell you, children have better instincts than adults. They can differentiate between genuine love and pretense. My first pregnancy was difficult, and I was put on bed rest. My in-laws didn't visit me even once to check on me. My second pregnancy is comparatively easier, but they started visiting, not to care for me, but to flaunt their new jewelry, trendy dresses, or bags worth thousands of dollars. My SIL constantly gushed about her boyfriend's wealth and their plans for a grand wedding in Scotland. I just nodded politely, plastered a smile on my face, and sighed under my breath. Good for you. A week ago, my MIL and SIL showed up unannounced. They started praising my cooking. My SIL specifically mentioned how much she loved the apple pie and bacon donuts I had made years ago. Rather than feeling flattered, I was immediately suspicious. I asked them directly why they suddenly remembered desserts I'd served ages ago. They seemed caught off guard. My SIL claimed she had been craving apple pie and that no restaurant could match the taste of mine. I thanked them for their kind words, but told them I wasn't feeling well enough to bake, given my pregnancy and taking care of Sarah. They weren't willing to take no for an answer and kept insisting. Finally, I said I would try to bake it whenever I felt up to it. My SIL, to my surprise, hugged me for the first time since my wedding and specifically asked for it to be ready by Sunday. I didn't think much of the specific date at the time. To be honest, I didn't intend to make it at all. I only said I'd try to dodge the conversation. The week went on, and I was so tired from my pregnancy and looking after Sarah that I forgot all about it. On Friday night, during dinner, Andrew casually mentioned that he would be busy over the weekend because his SIL's boyfriend and his family were coming for dinner on Sunday. Suddenly, everything clicked. Their sudden praise, the request for apple pie and bacon donuts, and the specific mention of Sunday, it all made sense. Andrew explained that his SIL's boyfriend's family had a sweet tooth and had heard a lot about authentic American apple pie. SIL had apparently boasted about her culinary skills and promised to serve them my desserts, claiming she had made them herself. I was livid. I told Andrew that I wasn't going to go through the effort of baking something for someone else to take the credit, especially when I wasn't even invited to the dinner. Andrew shrugged it off, saying his mother didn't invite me because they thought I might feel uncomfortable in front of the guests, given my pregnancy. Even if I believed her intentions were genuine, which they clearly weren't, why didn't they inform me about the dinner when they visited earlier to ask for desserts? Andrew just shrugged again, saying he didn't know. The next day, Andrew left to pick up his father, saying he'd return on Sunday night after the dinner. I wanted to argue, but I decided to preserve my mental peace. I knew fighting wouldn't stop him from attending. On Sunday, I deliberately switched off my phone and locked myself in my room with Sarah. I guessed my MIL and SIL would try to contact me, and when they couldn't reach me on my phone, they left voicemails on the landline. I ignored all the calls, though I wasn't entirely at peace. Still, I felt satisfied knowing I didn't give in to their manipulative demands that on Monday morning, when I turned my phone back on, I was bombarded with missed calls and voicemails. The messages started with pleading and ended with curses. My MIL's voicemail on the landline was a tirade that could rival a Shakespearean monologue in length. She accused me of deliberately ruining their dinner party and called me a witch, among other colorful insults. Apparently, my SIL's boyfriend's family left the dinner table disappointed because there was no dessert. The sweet-tooth Scots had to go without the promised apple pie and bacon donuts, and of course, I was to blame. MIL claimed they hadn't prepared or ordered any backup desserts because SAL wanted to impress her would-be in-laws with her culinary skills, using my recipes. The irony was delicious, unlike their dessert table. MIL ranted about how I embarrassed the family and tarnished SIL's image in front of her in-laws. I couldn't help but picture their faces as they scrambled to explain why dessert was missing. If it wasn't such an absurd situation, I might have laughed. I sarcastically suggested that they could have simply ordered something from a restaurant to save face. But no, SIL's lies had caught up with her. Later, Andrew returned home from work, unusually silent. I tried to bring up what MIL had said, but he cut me off, saying he didn't want to discuss it. Instead of addressing their audacity, he blamed me for embarrassing his family. His exact words? "You should consider yourself lucky. I'm not scolding you. Let's not drag this any further." That was the breaking point for me. Andrew had chosen to stand by his toxic mother and sister, not me, his pregnant wife. I told him outright that his family's behavior was unacceptable and he was enabling it. He shrugged it off and went to bed, leaving me fuming. It's been 2 months since my original post. I'm now 40 weeks pregnant and my baby is due any day now. After the initial incident, I tried to have a mature conversation with Andrew about what had happened. 2 weeks ago, after my routine pregnancy scan, I brought up how hurt I was by his lack of support during the whole dessert debacle. He brushed it off, saying I should focus on my health and let it go. While his tone was calm, there was an air of secrecy in how he avoided the topic. This morning, I woke up to find Andrew packing his bags. When I asked him what he was doing, he nonchalantly said he was leaving for Scotland for SIL's wedding. My heart sank. How could he even consider leaving me at 40 weeks pregnant? I bombarded him with questions. When was this wedding planned? Why didn't you tell me? How can you leave me now? His answers were brief and defensive. He claimed the wedding date had been decided last minute and that he had no choice. According to him, SIL's in-laws had insisted on this particular date, and he couldn't miss it. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "You do have a choice. You're choosing them over me and your unborn child," I yelled. Andrew avoided eye contact, stuffed his wedding suit into his bag, and walked out of the room. Moments later, the doorbell rang. Emile barged in, shouting at Andrew for being late. She dragged his bags out of the room and made a snide comment about buying anything he forgot in Scotland. Her smug expression was the final straw. I threw the rest of Andrew's packed belongings into the living room and locked myself in my bedroom. Sarah woke up to my tears and came to comfort me. Her innocent words, "Mommy, don't cry. The baby is coming soon and we'll be happy again," gave me the strength to push through the pain. I called my sister and asked her to stay with me in case I went into labor. I didn't want to be alone. As the day progressed, I tried my best to distract myself by spending time with Sarah. We played games, watched her favorite cartoons, and read some bedtime stories. Despite my efforts, I couldn't shake the hurt and betrayal I felt. Andrew's departure left a gaping hole in my heart, and the fact that Emile was complicit made it worse. The thought of Andrew happily attending a lavish wedding while I was on the brink of giving birth filled me with frustration and sadness. That evening, I received a flurry of messages from Emile, Andrew, and even SIL. Emile accused me of being selfish and ruining the family's happiness by not being supportive of SIL's wedding. SIL's texts were outright venomous, calling me bitter and jealous of her newfound success. Andrew sent only a few brief messages, stating that he hoped I understood his position and that he would return after the wedding. Not once did he ask how I was feeling or check on Sarah. I decided to put my phone away and focus on preparing myself mentally for labor. My sister arrived late that night, bringing some comfort to an otherwise chaotic situation. She helped me organize a hospital bag and reassured me that I wasn't alone. The night Andrew left for Scotland, things took a dramatic turn. After I posted my last update, I logged into Facebook to distract myself. To my dismay, I saw pictures of Andrew happily posing with his family at SIL's wedding venue. The lavish decorations, the smiling faces, it all felt like a slap in the face. Unable to contain my emotions, I broke down in tears in the bathroom. As I sobbed, I suddenly felt a sharp pain. Moments later, I realized my water had broken. Panic set in as I struggled to make it to the living room to call an ambulance. Sarah, sensing something was wrong, held my hand and tried to comfort me. Thankfully, I managed to dial emergency services before the pain became too intense. The ambulance arrived quickly, and the paramedics found Sarah clinging to me, crying. Since there was no one else at home, they brought her along. At the hospital, I gave birth within hours. It was a blur of pain and relief. Sarah stayed with one of the nurses, who kept her entertained and reassured. The nurses attempted to contact Andrew, but his phone was unreachable. My sister arrived early the next morning, furious that I hadn't called her sooner. She stayed by my side, taking care of Sarah and the baby while I recovered. The hospital staff reported the situation to the police, as they believed my husband's absence constituted negligence. I was questioned about my home environment, and while I clarified that I wasn't physically abused, I admitted to enduring emotional and mental neglect. This led to a formal negligence charge being filed against Andrew. After Andrew returned from Scotland, he was met with an empty house, a legal notice for divorce, and a summons regarding the negligence charges. My parents had helped me pack up my belongings and move to their home while I recovered. Andrew's reaction to the legal notice was nothing short of panic. He called me repeatedly, left voicemails begging for forgiveness, and even involved Emile in his pleas. When he finally managed to reach me, I made it clear that I had no intention of reconciling. My parents were equally firm, telling Andrew that his actions had jeopardized the lives of not just one but 3 people: me, Sarah, and our newborn son. Andrew and Emile showed up at my parents' house unannounced, hoping to convince me to drop the charges. Emile's tone was accusatory, blaming me for ruining the family's reputation in front of SIL's in-laws. She pleaded for forgiveness, citing SIL's delicate situation. I couldn't help but laugh at the absurdity. When Andrew asked to see our son, I refused. "You didn't even know he was born," I reminded him coldly. My father asked them to leave and not return unless it was for official proceedings. The divorce was finalized last week. I was awarded full custody of both children, substantial alimony, and child support. Additionally, I received my share of the marital home, which Andrew has 3 months to pay for or it will be auctioned. I've since moved into a cozy new home near my parents, where I'm focusing on rebuilding my life. As for SIL, her fairy tale ended abruptly. After my conversation with her husband, he conducted a background check on her and my in-laws. The truth about their financial situation and lies came to light. SIL's husband filed for divorce, accusing her of theft and deception. She allegedly stole money from her in-laws' locker to support MIL and is now facing legal repercussions. MIL, Estelle, and Andrew are now embroiled in their own mess. Meanwhile, I'm enjoying a newfound sense of peace and freedom. My children are thriving, and I'm looking forward to starting a new chapter in life without the toxic influences of my in-laws.